Hey guys, um, this is your video on the progressive form. Now, this time our video is a glogster, or a glog, which stands for graphic blog. I know you guys have done this in the past. Just wanted to try to keep using some different methods for you. I would like to have you look at the word progressive for a second, because every one of the 6 major tenses has a progressive form. If you look at that word inside progressive, you see progress. Progress means action, but if something is in progress, that means it's happening now. Okay? And that's the progressive form. It tells you something that is presently occurring. It's happening. Okay? Now, this is just a side note. Something that lets us see that it's happening. You can see over here, it ends in ing. Okay? So, just a couple of basic notes at the beginning here. The progressive form shows that an action is continuing or in progress. That's why it's the progressive form. Now, traditionally, the present tense doesn't say that something is happening at this very instant. It just says that it happens often or is likely to occur. That is supposed to be happens. I apologize for the typo. Example, Mr. Fincham plays the guitar. Well, I do play the guitar. I do it all the time. But that doesn't mean I'm doing it right now. This sentence does not mean that's actually happening right now. Okay? But if you look at this sentence, the progressive example, Mr. Fincham is playing the guitar. You see playing, so it happens, you take the root and you add ing, or the base and you add ing. This is obviously the present participle form, playing. And you say Mr. Fincham is playing the guitar. So in order to be progressive, you have your base form with ing, and remember sometimes there are different rules like doubling a consonant or adding a y, it just depends on your word. And then you also add your form of be. Okay, so this one, Mr. Fincham is playing the guitar, that is an example of this in progress. Now, I told you in order to be progressive, you have to have your corresponding verb be with your ing verb. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these exactly. Alright? So, the first one we'll talk about is present progressive. Okay? The robot is speaking at Disney's Magic Kingdom. Okay? That is present progressive. If you look at it, you have your verb speaking, and then is helps it. That means it's happening right now. As you can see on this ride here in Tomorrowland, the robot is speaking. Now, when we go from present, that means it's happening right now, to past. Okay? That means it was occurring right now at some point that you're talking about in the past. Okay? So the ride was spinning when I went on my family vacation. So this is a ride where it spins around and you see different scenes throughout the decades. And so the ride was spinning. So this time you have the same ing spinning. The only thing that changes for past tense is your form of be, is was. So for present you have is, for past you have was, and for future you have will be. Every time you're talking about future progressive, that means something that will be going on in the future. The ride will be functioning as long as Tomorrowland is a part of Disney World. So that's something, an event in the future where that is happening. You understand? So will be is going to be your helping verb for the future. Now, you might also have remembered the progressive tense that we just said, but also the perfect tense. Okay? Now, if you remember the perfect tense, it is when things are occurring, right? Because we're talking about progressive. But in order to be perfect, you always are comparing it to something that happened in the past. Okay? So present perfect progressive is something that you're talking about in the past, but it was happening, and it may still be happening today. That's why it's present perfect progressive. It may have started in the past, but could still be going on. So the futuristic robots have been performing the same scene for over 20 years. Okay? So these robots, they have the same scene over and over for, you guessed it, over 20 years. Now, it's still going on today, which is what makes it present, but also you see that it happened in the past. Now, in order to function this way, you still have been, okay? So it's your past tense of the form be, been, right? Performing, we still have our ing because it's progressive, and then have. Now, it could be has if it were singular. If it was the futuristic robot, you would say has. So it's has or have, been, always, and then performing, or whatever ing verb you have. Now, past perfect progressive, you're talking about an event in the past, that as it was happening in the past. So, the ride had been spinning for 10 minutes before I arrived. You see why? Because it happened before I got there. It was in progress before I got there, if you can see what I'm saying. So, the ride had been spinning. So really, for the past perfect progressive, the only thing that changes from the first one is your verb. Instead of has or have, you have had. Had implies past. So if you think back to our perfect tenses from before, we have the same rules, right? And so you've guessed it, I'm sure, if you know this one, future perfect progressive, the ride will have been functioning for 50 years in 2014. Because in 2014, this ride that all these pictures are from will have been going on, or so will have been functioning for 50 years. And this is future perfect progressive because it's in progress now, but we're talking about the progress it will have made at this future time period. Now, for future, you will use will, have, been every time, and then you add, you guessed it, functioning, or your ing verb. Okay? So, I do want to make sure that you realize that the section for this shows you kind of how to change them. Okay? But if you remember that for your regular progressive tenses, present, past, and future, you're going to use the form of be with your ing. Is speaking, okay? If it was I, you could say am speaking, right? And then past, was spinning. Future, will be functioning, okay? And then for the progressive tense, I just want you to make sure you remember, the perfect progressive tense, that you have two helping verbs. Have been, so have, it could be has, right? Been performing, and it's going to be been every time. Had for the past, always, had been. And then for future, it will be will have been every time. Okay, so under 9 minutes, got a video, and hopefully you paid attention to these photos. Happy watching. Mr. F, I'm out.